Today on the channel, we continue taking a look at Jakks Class Superstars Series 18 with good old JR Jim Ross, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and Mae Young.
The spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for another Jakks Class Superstars Series 18 unboxing and review. And today on the channel, we've got the Nature Boy Ric Flair, we've got good old JR, and we've got Mae Young. But for all your modern day wrestling figure needs, make sure you're hitting up Ringside Collectibles. Use discount code Kyle, save yourself 10%. And today, we don't necessarily have to unbox these. I have all these loose in my collection. So these, we'll just take a look at the packaging like we always do. Then we'll take a look, I should say, at the loose figures. And of course, we're going to start it off with the little ladies first with old Mae Young here. Of course, Mae Young into the line. We got Moolah, many sets back. Very cool, especially at the time to get a Mae Young figure. Definitely fit into the Classic Superstars line. However, some people at the time remember saying, well, we should have got a classic version of Mae Young, not a more modern representation. But I would say, for most people in the world remember Mae Young. This type of Mae Young, her later stages of life, of course, to a national audience, TV time, stuff like that. But obviously, all the stories about Mae Young, her being quite the world traveler back in the day in the female wrestling leagues. Quite the classic superstar in her own way, for sure. But I would say remembered fondly, not for her old wrestling days, more of her crazy old lady taking bumps type days, or giving a birth to a hand live on Raw. Maybe that is her legacy. Who knows? But let's take a look at Mae Young in the package here. Of course, she comes with a ring bell that's even older than she is. That ring bell, the oldest time in the Jakks accessory department. One of these days, we're going to count up how many times that ring bell was actually used in Classic Superstars. But you got Mae Young as a figure. You got her on the side glamour shot. Of course, we recently got a Mae Young in the Mattel Elite line after all these years. So Mae Young still getting figures all these years later. Cross sell, big one there. Of course, we talked about all those on the channel. We got UPCs, got warnings, got tail of the tape. We got the blurb, and we got a glamour shot of beautiful old Johnny Mae Young. We're going to put her off to the side, of course, and get down to business. We won't talk about that ring bell. We've talked about it enough. I think we've seen that old decrepit bell 1 million too many times. But she does come with a nice soft goods singlet here. Unfortunately, it does do some staining, but very smart of Jakks here to give her a black kind of top underneath that covers up some of that staining, but you do get some of that staining here. So it's kind of, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. It really is a roll of the dice, I guess, just like today's day and age for sure. So we do got a little staining there. Articulation-wise, she's going to be the same as JR, so we'll walk through it real quick. You got the biceps, and the arms go all the way around, biceps turn, single-jointed elbows, wrists back and forth, up and down, depending on the hinge you want. She does got a little bit of a stretch right there. Single jointed knees, ankles back and forth. She does have waist, and the head does move. So she's got a decent amount of articulation for an old lady, for sure. But definitely looks like an old lady, looks like Mae Young from back in the day. I could see somebody saying this is either Mae Young or Moolah. I could see people get maybe a little confused. They have very similar hairstyles. I heard they went to the same hairdresser. Somebody fact check that, but I'm pretty sure that's the truth. But a good representation of Mae Young in the Classic Superstars line. A really cool tongue-in-cheek figure. And these later lines like Series 18, we didn't see much as far as peg warming go. If she was in the earlier sets, I got to think she would have been pretty much a peg warmer. But like I said, these went pretty quick off the shelves during the time. So I think she was okay as far as sales went. But pretty cool. All in all, it's cool to get a Mae Young, especially back in the day. Like I said, we do have a Mattel version now, but way back when, this is all we had. So a pretty cool idea, if you ask me. So there's old Mae Young there. Now we're going to turn our attention to the LJN representative in this set. Of course, the Nature Boy Ric Flair. When I was a kid, I don't know about you guys, if you're in my age bracket, we dreamed of having a Ric Flair LJN to go up against our Hogans and our Ricky Steamboats, things like that. Had to play along. Some of the creative kids out there used their imagination and made Greg the Hammer Valentine LJN as their LJN Ric Flair. My imagination wasn't that good. I was always such a purist, and that's one of my regrets as a child. I didn't play with my toys all together. Like, I could have mixed and matched some things, but I didn't do it. I was such a purist. Nope, this stays with this. That's the way it goes. The only time I'd ever cross over just a hair was the Ric Flair Galoob and some of the Galoob figures coming into my Hasbro Fig Fed. You just had to do it because I needed the Steiners, I needed Sid, which was crazy enough. A lot of those guys did get Hasbros later on, but the Ric Flair Hasbro was absolutely god-awful, as you guys know, so I had to use the Galoob one. But that's the only time I ever crossed over my figures. But others did that with a lot of success, so for sure. But there's the old Nature Boy Ric Flair. Looks really good. Unfortunately, if this was an LJN when I was a kid, I would have probably been disappointed because there's not a lot you can do with this LJN Ric Flair as far as wrestling-wise goes. So a little bit missing the mark right there. But you do got the blue packaging for these, of course. Ric Flair on the side, Superstars. Nature Boy Ric Flair on the side. Just beautiful. He definitely belonged in the line, like we always say. Cross-sell, UPCs, warnings, tail of the tape, the blurb, Ric Flair glamour shot. It's all there for you. On the back, let's see what it says about the old Nature Boy. Height, 6'1", 243 pounds. Debuted in 1991. Oh my gosh, that's not quite correct. That's a little bit mistake there. Debuted in WWE, WWF in 91. Probably right around there. That makes sense. Figure 4 leg lock, of course. Titles: WWE Champion, World Heavyweight Champion, United States Champion, Intercontinental Champion, Royal Rumble winner, WWE Tag Team Champion, and World Tag Team Champion. All the accolades to old Ric Flair. Just recently, as of filming right now, had his very final match. We'll see if that does stick, but I'm a long-time Nature Boy Ric Flair fan. I know he's got his doubters and people that absolutely hate him, but as little Kyle watching wrestling as a kid, he was eating up everything Ric Flair did with a fork and a spoon. Sometimes he'd even go to KFC. He'd grab himself a spork. That's how into Ric Flair I was back in the day. Definitely on my Mount Rushmore of wrestlers of all time. And then we got this one loose here, and unfortunately, he is one of the stickiest LJNs. Got that Jack sticky disease really, really bad. It's just a sick disease that we just can't seem to get a cure for. We're working hard. Pledge your money. I think I got a hotline number. I'll put it in the comments. Call that number. Donate all you can. We need to fix this disease. Maybe we should start a hotline for this. Maybe I should go research, get some scientists. We can figure out this once and for all. That would be something. But we got the Nature Boy tights going on, some stars, blue trunks, and blue boots. Got the RF Ric Flair, got the black knee pads, a little bit strange. And then you got a very terrible generic non-playability figure here. It just looks like more of a statue, really, a rubber statue at this point. He also does not stand very good. He's got a deep lean to him, so he is one of the harder ones to stand, as he always wants to fall forward on you. Just a sticky mess. So obviously not my exact favorite. He's got to sit down. That's how bad it is. Now my hands are all sticky for the JR review. What are we doing here? What are we doing? But that is the Class Superstars LJN Ric Flair. Not Ric Flair's finest moment in figure form. We'll put it at that. But JR, another one that we don't get a whole lot of figures from over the years. Really a lack of figures, I would say. Of course, his first figures were back in the Bone Cruncher days. Those were okay for what they were. We did, of course, get this one. Of course, Class Superstar Series 18. We also got a Mattel Build-A-Figure edition of Jim Ross, which was always pretty good. I think that's probably his crown jewel as of right now. But we do have a Ringside Collectibles exclusive Jim Ross up on Ringside Collectibles. Use discount code Kyle, save 10%, pick up that JR. But yeah, JR, a guy that hasn't had tons and tons of figures over the years, which is a bit of a shame. I think we could have used one or two more Mattels throughout. I would have liked to see a throwback JR. We'll see maybe a Luminaries one day in the AEW line. Give us an old school WCW Mid-South JR. How about something like that? Something a little different. But this JR works pretty good for your Attitude Era JR, I think. Good old JR things. A very, very good figure. A little bit tall, of course. We'll get into that in a second here. But there's old JR. He does come with a lot of accessories. Got a microphone, got an announcer headset, and a black hat. That makes all the sense in the world. JR on the side of the package. Jim Ross. What's it say there? JR Jim Ross is what it says on the side. And then you get over here. You got old Jim Ross right there. You got the tail of the tape. You got the blurb, cross-sell, warnings, UPCs, glamour shot. It's all there for old JR. Jim Ross debuted 1993. Finishing quote, "Business is about to pick up." Titles, member of the WWE Hall of Fame, member of the Vince McMahon KMA Club. Did that really need to be on there? That just seems, I don't know, that just seems strange. It kind of takes away some of the classicness of the classic superstars. I don't think that should have been listed in there. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Of course, on the back of the package, you can see he's got the very stubby legs. They were going to use that Taz body mold, announcer Taz body mold for him, but for whatever reason, it did not come to fruition. So very, very strange there. But we're going to put him off to the side. Of course, we got JR and his accessories over here. Grab him out. Of course, the black microphone Once again, seen it a million times. We know what we're getting with that. We do get the black headset. We got this in a lot of different color combinations over the years, but this does look really, really good for old JR there. And then you get his black sticky cowboy hat. I had to work this over not too long ago. It is sticky, but we also saw these black cowboy hats a lot with different wrestlers over the years as well. So there's that. Then you get down to JR, and unfortunately he does have the the Jakks Classic Superstars, Jakks in general, sticky disease all over his coat. I did take a plastic thing to it a little bit, the packaging tape to clean it up, but it will come back slowly, unfortunately. But JR looks really good. It looks like JR. Somebody give you this head sculpt, you know who this is all day long. They got him kind of a weird look on his face. We know he had Bell's palsy, all that kind of stuff, but they gave him just kind of a little bit off face count to me. If you ask me, this face just looks a little off, but all day long I'm going to know this is JR, though. He does come with the jacket, of course. Does have a nice tie on him. Comes with the open hand and a mic holding hand. And then you got the suited body legs, of course. Not tons of articulation with JR, but you don't need tons of articulation with JR. He is an announcer, so he's got to do his announcing things. Now, this hat is a little bit big for him. It is kind of swims in on his head a little bit, but it is what it is. And, of course, the microphone's got to be in his hand. But a very, very good JR. Up until maybe the AEW one, probably my favorite JR figure. That Build-A-Figure's okay. It's just missing something. It's just missing something, not sure what. This one is pretty good. Take away the sticky disease. The face a little bit off, but we still know it's JR. I think we're in good shape here. But an interesting lineup here. We got Staining with Mae Young. We got the sticky disease with JR. And then we got a god-awful ALJN posed Ric Flair with the sticky disease. Not Jack's finest moments as far as quality control on these three. I think we'd all agree to that. But what do you think on these three in the Classic Superstars line? Did you have them? Did you want them? Do you need them? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Of course, you made it this far. You might as well like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the old notification bell. As you guys know, every single Tuesday for well over 2 years now, we've had Jakks Class Superstars content. You don't want to miss a video, so make sure you hit that notification bell. You can also follow along on Patreon where we get videos like this much earlier, bonus content, exclusive content, and be a part of monthly giveaways. The Classic Superstars videos, as of filming, we're about 5 months ahead on these videos, if you can believe that. So a lot of bonus opportunities to watch early videos over there on Patreon. And as I always say, best way to support the channel and support what we do right here. So check out the Patreon link in the description below. You can also support the channel with ProWrestlingTees.com. Search Kyle Peterson, pick up a t-shirt. And then, of course, don't forget to follow me on social media at SirPaul64 on Twitter, Instagram, _Kyle_Peterson. So for JR, Mae Young, and Ric Flair, I'm Kyle. See you guys all real soon.